Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You have found the dark oak. Today, we tell the story of aspiring model Ryan Singleton. His body was found in the desert, missing his internal organs. Was this a tragic accident? Or is Ryan the victim of organ harvesting?
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month, through our charity called the Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of earnings from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. To find out how you can be a part of the movement, head over to thedarkoak.com or stay with us until the end of the episode and we will give you all of the details.
Thanks, Cynthia. Now, I have to tell you, I'm pretty personally invested in this case with Ryan Singleton, and I feel really pleased and honored to talk about his case for a couple different reasons. Firstly, and the most importantly to this mama's heart, is I was able to personally speak to Ryan's lovely mother, Miss Iris. And I'm sure you can attest to the fact that once you speak to a loved one about the subject of a case you're covering, you really want to do your best for them and like the best for the family.
Oh, it absolutely adds like this responsibility, I think. And you just want to do the best you can. You want to honor the person you're speaking about and their family. And yeah, it's huge.
It's really huge. Miss Iris was very open and very kind and has admitted the last 10 years have really been difficult for her. There was a loss of a job, family tension, difficulties navigating the relationships with the people Ryan associated most with in the last few months of his life. And then there's also dealing with the overwhelming loss of her son and the nagging unanswered questions about what happened to Ryan. My heart really breaks for her, and I hope we can find some help for her today. She names specific ways that our listeners can help her in her son's case, and I'm looking forward to sharing those with you as well at the end of the episode to see if we can provide some assistance to this family in their search for answers. The second benefit of sharing this case in particular is the privilege of being able to strip away over 10 years of what I consider speculation and rumors. I couldn't believe the amount of conflicting information, and to be frank, what I would consider untruths in this case. And it's my goal to provide a clear and unobscured look at the life and unfortunately the untimely death of Ryan Singleton.
We talk about it over and over again, but these untruths that follow cases do so much harm. So it'll be great to have what really happened, as much as we know, consolidated for us here.
I hope this is fresh eyes on the case at least. On the 9th of July, 2013, 24-year-old Ryan was driving his car through the Mohave Desert through what we know as Death Valley. He was on his way back to Los Angeles after spending the day in Las Vegas when his car ran out of gas on Highway 15. After walking several miles towards the closest town in the intense heat, we're talking the middle of the desert in the afternoon,
Yeah, that's rough.
Ryan encountered what should have been an incredible stroke of luck when a highway patrolman saw Ryan and offered to help him. The highway patrolman eventually dropped Ryan off at a rest station in Baker, California, where Ryan called a friend in LA to come and pick him up. When this friend arrived at the rest stop 3 hours later, Ryan was nowhere to be found. Over 2 months passed with no word and no sightings from Ryan. Then on September 21st, 2013, local hikers found Ryan's decomposing body in the desert within the previously searched area. A thorough autopsy cited the cause of death as undetermined. And more disturbingly, it was revealed that even though Ryan's body was relatively intact, he was missing at least 6 of his internal organs, leading some to believe Ryan may have been another victim of organ harvesting.
This is awful.
Ryan Terrell Singleton was born on January 20th, 1989 to his loving mother, Iris Flowers. And Cynthia, I know you will love this part. When he was born, he was over 10 pounds and over 21 inches long. Oh, a little big
Chunky.
and squishy, chunky. I mean, all the things you love in a baby.
I would have a hard time not biting him.
Cuteness, aggression.
Yes.
I understand. And Miss Iris sent me the cutest pictures of Ryan
Oh.
as a baby.
Oh.
One she sent me, it was, quote, fresh out of the womb. And it's literally him in his little hospital cradle. And he is so chunky, these big thighs.
I have
That I
got to see
just,
these photos.
you will. I will
Okay.
show you. The cutest. And also some really adorable photos of Ryan with his older brother, Justin. Now, Justin was about 6.5 years older than Ryan. And so it's this adorable picture of this sweet 6-year-old holding up this tiny little, baby, and really adorable. You could tell Iris was just obsessed from the beginning.
Oh my goodness. That idea of that photo melts my heart. The brother holding the baby.
I know. Now, growing up in a suburb in Atlanta, Ryan really flourished. His mother described him as loving and funny, as well as a bit shy, but always a very gentle giant.
Oh, I love that.
In high school, Ryan accompanied his girlfriend to a few modeling shoots, and Ryan decided he wanted to give it a shot himself. His striking good looks made him a shoo-in, and Ryan not only scored modeling gigs, but also worked as an extra in the 2010 film Lottery Ticket.
Okay.
Now, I have not seen this movie myself, but it's on my list ever since Miss Iris told me about it. So
Yeah,
we'll have
movie night.
a movie night for sure.
Yes.
After high school graduation, Raya attended the University of Alabama for a short time before deciding to pursue a full-time modeling career. Having outgrown the Atlanta market, Ryan, at 21 years old, purchased a one-way ticket to New York City.
Oh my gosh.
Brave, right?
So brave.
And it wasn't just New York City. He and a friend decided to tackle Fashion Week.
Oh, well, okay.
Let's just jump right in the fire.
Let's do it.
Incredibly, with no portfolio or manager, Ryan was booked on the spot to walk in several Fashion Week runways.
That's amazing.
It really is amazing. And in the months that followed, Ryan began looking for his next big break, but he was finding it difficult to gain traction in a competitive New York market. His mother, Miss Iris, told me that he attempted to land a spot with one of the premier modeling agencies, but was rejected, with the agency saying that he wasn't a good fit for their program. And Miss Iris recalls this moment being pretty difficult for Ryan. And Cynthia, I know you are in the showbiz.
Oh, yes.
And I'm sure you can attest to all stages of life. This kind of rejection, it's tough.
It's awful. It's awful. It makes you look at all the reasons why you're not good enough and pretty enough and talented enough. It's awful.
Yeah. And especially when you're a young person, I mean, it does make you kind of question, like, am I going the right direction? Is this really what I want to do? And so, of course, Brian had all those natural questions. But the key is you don't give up.
That is absolutely the key. That's how you make it.
And-
You keep going.
Yeah. And this is what Ryan did. He quickly decided that, okay, forget modeling. I might have a better acting career. So he then set his sights on Hollywood.
I love the goal making he's got going on. Just okay.
He's like, I'm not playing around.
I'm
Let's
going
go.
west.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Now, this part of the story is a little bit brilliant. He and a few friends who were also aspiring actors, models, and producers decided to move to LA, like straight up packed up a U-Haul truck and drove to LA. And they decided while they did it, they were going to make a documentary about their experiences breaking into the acting world.
That sounds like a friend group of artists to me.
Doesn't it?
We're going to make a movie. I love it. How cool.
We're going to make a movie about trying to make movies.
Yes.
Yeah. Now,
I would watch that.
Yeah, totally. Now, all the members of this group were young Black men, so the group was later referred to as the Black Entourage. And it was mirrored a little after the Entourage show on HBO. Are you familiar with it at all?
I've heard of it. I've never watched it.
But you haven't watched it?
No.
Barton, my husband, was really into watching it when it was out. It aired for like 8 seasons, so
Okay.
he wasn't alone. It was
No,
a very
yeah.
popular show. It was loosely based on the real-life experiences of Mark Wahlberg and his friends as they tried to break into show business.
That sounds right up my alley.
Mark Wahlberg was one of the producers as well. And it really was, I mean, all kinds of antics that you get into with having to smooth talk this person, having to rub elbows with this person, having to do these very, shall we say, entry-level acting jobs in order to try to break into the celebrity roles.
Reminds me of Penny on The Big Bang when I think she played like a gorilla or something. That
Yeah,
was her big break.
I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta pay your
You
dues.
got to pay your dues.
Absolutely. But when you're thinking about this group, think about that show. You
Okay.
know, these young people heading out with just ambition all over them.
I love it. That's a very special place to be in life, I think.
Absolutely.
Exciting.
Now, while this group gave Ryan a lot of new opportunities, Miss Iris did feel like Ryan's naivety was a real disservice to her son, and she feels like he could have been kind of easily manipulated or even taken advantage of by
Mm.
the other people in this group during this time. And she doesn't know of anything in particular that happened, but the fact of the matter is, Ryan was hanging with a new crowd. These were all new friends, people his mother didn't know, people he had just kind of been acquaintances with, but was now spending all of his time with. And because of this new lifestyle, most of his communication with his mother was through social media, and he was more distant from his family, both geographically and socially.
As a mother, that's hard because you want your kids to go out and flourish and spread their wings, and at the same time they're your baby, and we have a little more experience as mothers than our adult children do, and we know all that can happen. It's hard to juggle.
Exactly. And truly, I think some of this pull away is
Mhm.
natural, especially with boys.
Sure.
It's like they really need that, like you said, spread their wings. They need to experience freedom and independence. But for Miss Iris, especially in Ryan's case where something bad did happen, it's like this hindsight. You know, I mean, I think
Yeah.
every mother goes through this, but for her, it's this added addition of hindsight. Like, did something happen that I didn't know about? And she totally admits she doesn't know of anything that happened. Everything could have been fine. But again, you always wonder what happened during those years that she may not know about.
Sure.
So off this group goes to Los Angeles to make a documentary that they name Are We Famous Yet?
Adorable. I love it.
Yeah.
So cute. Are we there yet? Are we famous yet?
Are
And
we
it's a
famous
road
yet?
trip. I
Yep.
I love
Uh-huh.
it.
Yep. Now, Ryan lived and worked in LA for a little over a year before moving back to New York in December of 2012. As in, he left the Are We Famous Yet production group. And unfortunately, no one really knows why. I did read one article that said it was because of a fight or a falling out, but honestly, we don't know his reasons for moving back to New York.
Seems a little odd that he would leave and not be able to provide a reason that made sense.
I think so too.
It's a little strange.
I think it's a little strange. What we do know is that shortly after his arrival back to New York, Ryan married Keith Brewster, a self proclaimed designer of the stars who was twice the age of Ryan and male.
Okay.
Now, even though the wedding was quite sizable and attended by a good number of Keith Brewster's friends and family, including Cynthia Bailey from the First Housewives of Atlanta, Miss Iris and Ryan's older brother Justin found out through Facebook posts about both the wedding and Ryan's sexual orientation.
Okay. I mean, that would be a shock if you had a child, one, get married without telling you, and then two, to find out that they were gay and you didn't know it. And to find out on Facebook,
I-
that would be the shocking part, I think.
yeah, and shock is literally the word that Miss Iris uses. She couldn't believe it. It just popped up on her Facebook page, and here are these pictures and this pretty extravagant celebrity filled wedding that she knew nothing about. And she admits it was shocking. That was the first reaction. But then it was also disappointing and sad. And it wasn't the fact that her son was gay. As a matter of fact, she said that would not have been a problem between the two of them. But the fact that he didn't share these major events in his life was painful.
That would be heartbreaking.
Sure. And it would later be shown that Ryan didn't have any of his friends and family in attendance.
That seems strange.
That does seem strange to me, especially because Kais had so many of his friends and family involved.
I have some red flags going up.
It does seem strange. And again, they were consenting adults.
Sure.
This could have been a very solid relationship. We don't know. We weren't in it. But it does appear that this is a little one-sided.
Yeah, I'm not loving it.
When I asked Miss Iris why she thought she might not have been invited to the nuptials, she said she really wasn't sure. She thought Ryan may have been given some bad advice from a family member, encouraging Ryan to keep his lifestyle private from his family, but ultimately she questions Kythe's motivations. It was revealed that Ryan and Kythe had met while Ryan was attending Fashion Week back in 2011, so they had known each other for a little while. But again, Ryan was only 21 years old at the time, and she wonders really what these two would have had in common, and wonders if the marriage may have been motivated by something more than just love.
I'm all for live and let live and marry who you love and all that. But I will say this age difference appears to be greater than like me and my oldest son, quite frankly. And, you know, I love him, but he's got a lot of growing up to do, whereas I'm pretty settled. This kind of an age difference, along with everything else that you have mentioned, does seem like cause for concern.
I agree with you. There's just a few things that don't add up. It's not just the age. It's not just this homosexual relationship that had previously not been something that he had spoken about. It just seems a little odd.
Yeah.
Now, I absolutely understand that as a mother, you're more suspicious of anyone that you might think is taking advantage of your child or doesn't have their best interest at heart. But honestly, as an outsider looking in, it makes me raise an eyebrow, all those things combined. I don't know. It could have been based on a very solid relationship, but it's certainly unusual.
Yeah, I'm not loving it personally.
Now, as the hands of time turned, it was revealed that this marriage was no fairy tale because the couple split after only 4 months. A month later, Ryan returned home to Georgia to live with his mother. Ryan revealed that he had been unhappy in the marriage because Kythe would buy him expensive gifts but wouldn't pay for regular bills, meaning the water was often cut off and there was no money for groceries. Before being married, Kythe had also promised Ryan that he would introduce him to some other designers and possibly make some great connections for Ryan and his modeling career, but this never happened either. Ryan said he felt used and reduced to nothing more than arm candy,
Mm,
which I imagine was very hurtful.
absolutely. Sounds like Miss Iris had a valid cause to be concerned about this
Sure,
relationship.
sure. Mamas know.
Oh boy, do we. We know.
Now, Miss Iris also sensed something else was wrong. She recalled a conversation she had with Ryan in May of 2013, a little less than a week before his disappearance. She remembered that Ryan looked her in the eye and asked her, "Something bad's going to happen to me, isn't it?"
Oh, oh, I got chills.
It's ominous.
That's scary, especially given what we know.
Yeah,
Ooh,
absolutely.
okay.
And of course, she replied, asking, "What are you referring to?" She asked him if he owed money to someone, and he said no. He simply answered, "I've done a lot of things to hurt a lot of people." Now, her advice to him was to seek forgiveness from anyone he had hurt or wronged, and to seek forgiveness from God to help relieve some of his own guilt and suffering that he was carrying. Unfortunately, Iris never found out any more about this conversation or who Ryan was speaking about.
That seems strange. You've described a very loving, happy person. So for him to say, I've hurt a lot of people, done a lot of bad things, that is new to the story.
Now, Iris followed up by saying, "I don't know if he felt some kind of way because he left the production team, married Kythe, and then it didn't work out with Kythe, and now he's home. He knew he'd hurt me by disappearing and not communicating with me. Anybody outside of that, I couldn't figure out who it could be."
Okay.
So she's not knowing of any villains in this story thus far.
Right.
But again, she's not sure really who he was with the few years prior to this. So it's really hard to say. 2 days after this cryptic conversation on July 5th, Ryan abruptly asked his mother to drive him to the airport so he could catch a flight to Las Vegas, Nevada for a weekend trip. This seemed pretty strange, so Miss Iris asked him why he needed to go to Vegas. He told her he was planning to try out for a football team in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not what I expected to hear.
Well, neither did Miss
Oh,
Iris,
okay.
who immediately said, what are you talking about? I mean, it's the day after Independence Day. They're having tryouts in Las Vegas. And again, he was pursuing modeling, acting, producing. Football just wasn't really something that she thought was top of mind. It became clear, though, in the conversation with him that he was being purposely ambiguous and he did not want to answer her questions.
Okay.
So, again, you gotta let him go, right? He's an adult.
He's an adult.
So she complied with his wishes and took him to the airport. Little did she know that instead of flying to Las Vegas, Ryan actually flew to Los Angeles, where he rented a car and drove the 5 hours to Las Vegas.
Okay.
I'm going to let you noodle that for a minute.
That seems strange. Unless the flight to Los Angeles was significantly less expensive than the flight directly to Vegas, but then you have to factor in time and rental car and gas. I mean, I would want to know what the motive for that was.
It's very strange. To me, this is a very strange detail in this case. You're there for a short weekend trip, and it's a 5-hour drive. In the best case scenario, it could easily even take you 6 hours. So it's, let's say on average, a 5-hour drive from Los Angeles to Las Vegas. You're going to do whatever you're going to do in Las Vegas, and then you're going to drive 5 hours back. That's a huge chunk of time just driving.
Right, for a weekend trip.
For a weekend trip.
It's pretty much 2 travel days
Exactly.
of your weekend. I wonder if it could have been a mistake if he bought the ticket to the wrong Los Angeles instead of Las Vegas, and then was kind of stuck.
We do know that a friend purchased a ticket to fly to Los Angeles.
Okay.
So maybe it was a break in communication, a break in coordination. But whatever it is, it's a strange detail in this case. And even weirder, we don't really know what Ryan did in Las Vegas. We know he made it to Las Vegas. We know he was there. But we don't know what he spent his time doing.
With all the cameras in Las Vegas, there's no footage of him that has been released?
Not to my knowledge.
Wow.
No. And not to his mother's knowledge.
And he had no friends, nobody. Okay.
As far as we know, he was alone.
Okay.
What we do know is that on July 9th, the morning that he drove to Las Vegas, he called his mother and another friend and asked them to send him money. Miss Iris told me that Ryan called her and asked her to go into his bedroom where he had an emergency $100 bill and send it to him via wire so he could pick the money up in Las Vegas. And she did as he asked and sent the money via Western Union. When she called to tell him the task was completed, he didn't answer his phone. And the money was never picked up.
That's strange. The friend he called, did the friend send money that he picked up, or do we know?
We know he sent the money, but I do not know. It has never been reported whether he picked that up or not.
Okay.
But we know that friend sent $60.
Okay.
But again, I don't know if it actually got in Ryan's hands.
But we do know that the 100 that Miss Iris sent
was
never picked up.
That's correct.
Strange.
It is strange. Now, the next we know, Ryan is driving the rental car back to Los Angeles. Again, this is strange because we've now got an additional 5 hours of driving on this very short weekend trip. And also the money, was he gambling? I mean, this Las Vegas, right? Did he need the money for gambling? Did he literally need the money for gas money because he didn't plan on having to rent this car? It's different.
It's different. And then I'm still bothered by the fact that he requested money that he then didn't pick up. But we do know that he was seen after leaving Las Vegas. So it's not that something happened to him in Las Vegas causing him to not pick the money up, correct?
Well, possibly. We're just not really sure. Why would he ask for money that he knew he needed but then never pick it up?
That to me is very strange.
It's a strange detail. Was there something that happened in Las Vegas that prevented him from picking up the money? Now, granted, he does appear later.
Right. So that's my question. But then he appears later. So we know if something did happen to him, it didn't keep him from leaving Las
correct.
Vegas.
We do know that for sure.
Okay.
Now, about 2 hours into his return drive to LA, his rental car ran out of gas on Highway 15.
So he may have actually needed gas money.
Yes. But then why didn't he get it?
Okay. All right.
Without many options, Ryan began walking along the highway around 2:30 p.m. through Death Valley.
This is awful. This is, I mean,
Yikes.
you could die.
Yes,
You could die just doing that.
absolutely you could. Absolutely. This
Okay.
is very dangerous what's happening right now.
Very dangerous.
Now, incredibly, a vigilant highway patrolman passed Ryan and offered him assistance.
Okay.
Yeah, Ryan stated that his car had run out of fuel, and the officer first ran Ryan's license and confirmed that he had no outstanding warrants or tickets and noted that he was an organ donor. The officer then offered to drive Ryan to his car and help him refuel it with a fuel can the officer kept in his vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah, great solution,
Yeah.
right? So Ryan accepted the help and got in the car. The two began driving north on Highway 15 looking for Ryan's car, but they were not able to locate it.
What?
Yeah.
Were they driving in the right direction? Like he didn't get
Yes.
confused?
No? Well, not that we know. He was driving in the right direction of the vehicle. And after a while, the officer suggested, after driving up and down this highway, maybe the car was towed as an abandoned vehicle or possibly even stolen. If somebody had a gas can on them, maybe they just took the car, hot wired the car or something.
Okay. I mean, if it's not there, it's not there. And I can kind of see the car being towed. I'd want to know more because in this area, if you break down, there really is nothing for miles, hence the name Death Valley. You know, maybe there are tow trucks that are kind of patrolling the area. I don't know. So, all right, tell me more.
But again, the fact of the matter is if the car's not there, the car's
If
not
the
there.
car's not there, the car's not there. So I guess that's where we are.
Right. And Ryan kind of accepted that conclusion as well and agreed to be dropped off at a local town where he could wait to be picked up by a friend.
Okay.
So the officer drove him south past the point where he had originally been picked up and dropped him off in a small town called Baker, California at a 24-hour AM/PM service station. Now, while at the service station, Ryan called his friend in LA, and this is the same friend that had purchased the plane ticket for him, and he asked him to come pick him up. The friend said that he would, but again, he's in LA, so it's going to be at least a 3-hour trip. So he told Ryan, sit tight, I'm on my way, I'll get there as soon as I can. Ryan is later seen on the service station security camera making a purchase. After this, Ryan disappears.
Okay, he has 3 hours to kill. So he does have time to, I don't know, walk around, but you'd think he got a long enough walk earlier when he's walking Death Valley.
I would think he learned his lesson, if you
Right.
will. Like, I really don't want to go out there. Maybe he walked out to get a bite to eat. That's the only thing that I could think you could do in like 3 hours.
Right, you can't go anywhere. I think I would just hang out at the service station, maybe try to grab a nap if I needed one, or I don't know, buy a book. I don't know. I'm imagining this is like a gas station,
Yeah, it's a gas
like
station.
a little gas station.
It's like an AM/PM like BP Arco gas station.
So there's enough there that you could like buy yourself food.
And he's shown buying a little
Right.
snack.
So
And it's a safe location.
safe
It's a
location.
24-hour safe location. And it's early enough in the day. He could have simply waited for his friend. I want to reiterate, he's a 6'4", very in shape, young black man that would have been noticed. And to give you an idea, Baker, California has a total of 735 citizens.
So he would have
People would have noticed
him. One, we don't recognize him. We know everybody else.
That's right.
And two, he would have stood out. Now I do wonder, because of the size of the town, is it possible that he just was able to walk 3 blocks and he's no
didn't
longer
see
in the town?
anyone.
Yeah,
That's true, because it's just surrounded by desert. And so, I mean, maybe that's a double-edged sword. He would have stood out. Somebody would have noticed him because he would have been an outsider because they know everyone that lives there. But at the other hand, it's in the middle of the afternoon. So maybe everybody's at work and school and there's not a ton of traffic in Baker.
Right. But at the same time, what would his motivation for leaving this town and then walking into the middle of the desert have been? What would the motivation be?
The fact that he left that service station, to me,
Mhm.
is a big question in this case.
Yeah. I have several already. But yeah.
I think this is a big one for me.
Yeah.
What caused him to leave that service station?
Yeah, that's strange.
Now, when Ryan's friend arrives, Ryan's nowhere to be found, as I said.
Which, how helpless for the friend, too, because what's he supposed to do? And Ryan has a cell phone.
Yes, Ryan definitely
has
has
a
a cell
cell
phone
phone.
because he called him on his
Right,
cell phone.
right.
Absolutely. So the friend gets there, can't find Ryan where he's supposed to be. He tries calling him on his cell phone. Ryan doesn't answer. And after circling the area several times, he can't find Ryan and he's forced to make the 3-hour drive back to Los Angeles.
Okay, so he doesn't call authorities or anything like that.
Well, what the friend said is he expected Ryan to call him back at any moment.
Okay.
When he got back to LA and he still hadn't heard from Ryan, he called and reported him as a missing person.
Okay.
So
okay.
he did give him a few hours, which I think is reasonable for a 24-year-old man.
Sure.
You know?
At the same time, if you asked me to drive 3 hours to come get you and you're not going to be there, I would expect a phone call.
Yes, I would agree.
And so if I get there and you're not there, I'm going to assume something is wrong. But again, I'm also not in my 20s and, who knows? Okay.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Maybe he should have called right away. But the fact of the matter is, with a few hours of his friend disappearing, he contacted the San Bernardino Police Department and reports Ryan as a missing person.
Okay. And what else can he do?
What else can he do?
Right.
That same day, the same day Ryan disappears, Miss Iris gets a call from Ryan's estranged husband, Keith Brewster. And he asks if Ryan's okay. He tells her that Ryan called him that afternoon, and it sounded like Ryan was intoxicated. Miss Iris told him that Ryan wasn't with her, but was on the West Coast. Keith then tells Miss Iris that Ryan's life could be in danger, but he doesn't elaborate.
Okay, I have more chills because the timing of this is strange.
Is strange, right? And again, maybe he was just responding to that call that, that Ryan had made to him when he was in Vegas.
Right. That's true. Okay, so Ryan calls him.
And then he called Miss Iris to say, hey, listen, Ryan called. Something didn't sound right. Where is he? And she said he's on the West Coast. And then he said he could be in danger. Nobody knows what that means.
All right. I have questions.
So many questions. The following day, a search is performed around the city of Baker and really a 5-mile radius from the AM/PM service station. Ryan's rental car was eventually found a few miles north of the AM/PM station.
Hold on. Wait. Was it where they looked for it and couldn't find it?
The theory is that Ryan and the highway patrolman simply hadn't driven far enough in their search for the car, as in Ryan had walked further than he originally thought. And if they had just driven a little further, they would have found the car.
So what we're saying is Ryan walked past Baker.
Ryan didn't walk past Baker, but he walked further towards Baker than he originally thought. As in, he told the police officer, I think I've been walking for a mile or two, but really it was like 3 or 4.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh. Well, and you know what? It's a desert, so I think it would be easy to be like, I don't know, maybe it was near this rock. I don't know.
Well, there's no landmarks.
Right.
And so this is the only theory that's been presented that makes sense to me, because the car was there. It was out of fuel on the side of the road, kind of where Ryan said it was. It was just further out than Ryan originally thought it was.
It's just such a
weird.
What a tragedy that it was there.
It was there the whole time.
And they missed it.
Yes.
But also, Ryan, if all of this is factual, Ryan walked a really long distance in
extreme heat.
Extreme heat in a desert.
Inside the car, they found Ryan's backpack. Nothing seemed to be out of place or disturbed. And strangely, though, according to the police report, their car had no fingerprints in it.
Okay. This is weird.
No fingerprints.
Now, it was a rental, which means it's going to be getting thoroughly cleaned between every rent, every time somebody rents it.
But also, it's a rental. How does it not have fingerprints on it?
Well, I don't know how good of a job they do cleaning it. I wouldn't imagine they'd be wiping everything down. It's pre-COVID, so they're not really wiping everything down. But even if they did just really clean this car, or it was a brand new rental, Ryan's fingerprints should have been in there.
Yes, they absolutely should have.
There were no fingerprints.
According to the police report and according to what the police told Miss Iris, there were no fingerprints
Okay, so
in the
this
car.
is weird.
It's definitely weird.
I mean, there's no way to explain that other than somebody cleaned the car or whoever took the fingerprints did a really bad job.
Well, yeah, that's always a possibility, right? Now, on the same day that Ryan's car was found, Miss Iris's home was visited by 2 police officers who informed her that her son was now a missing person.
Oh, poor Iris.
They also asked her about Ryan's request for money. They told her that he had requested money from several friends within days of his disappearance. Unfortunately, Miss Iris couldn't provide more clarification as to why he needed the quick cash.
I mean, it is strange. I don't know why you'd plan a weekend trip if you're broke. And I'm assuming if you're having to ask a bunch of people for money, you're probably a little broke.
Or maybe the money was for the trip.
And I guess maybe if you were 20 and you didn't have money for a trip, you might just ask people for it. I don't know. Yeah. Strange. Did these friends give him money? Do we know? Some did, some didn't. We don't know.
Some did, some
Some
didn't.
did, some didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
However, 2 months passed with no sighting of Brian.
Oh, that's so awful.
It is awful. Then on September 21st, 2013, in the desert, only 2 miles from the AM/PM station where Ryan was last seen, 2 hikers stumbled across the badly decomposed body of a man. It was Ryan.
But this area has been searched.
That is correct. Now, again, I will say this is a completely desolate, uninhabitable. I mean, I'm not sure how well you can search Death Valley truly, even if you're trying to be as vigilant as possible. Like, in order to reach his location, you would have had to literally get on dune buggies and scoot across the desert. And I don't think anybody thought he would be out in the middle of the desert. He'd been found walking on a road. He'd been dropped off at an AM/PM station. I just don't think anybody thought they would find his remains out in the desert.
Because he's not just within 2 miles, but staying on the road. He's
no.
2 miles deep
Yes.
into
Yes.
the desert.
Yes. Yes.
Which I still think should have been searched when you have a missing person. But at the same time, I can see this isn't just a search that just anybody can do.
And Ryan's remains were really found in a truly unforgiving environment. There were no trees, only small scrub brush and tumbleweeds. And it basically looks like an arid, moonscape is what it looks like. There's nothing. And temperatures during the summer average 108 degrees.
Oh, no.
So, you know what I'm saying?
With no break, no shade, no water.
I just don't think anybody thought Ryan, who had appeared to be in his right mind, would have just gone out into the desert.
But could he have gotten that far? I mean, I guess 2 miles in the scheme of things isn't that far, but 2 miles in the desert with no water, no shade, you haven't prepared for this. You've been in Vegas. You're not wearing your desert shoes.
Right.
That's far.
That's far. And, this leads some people to say, well, did someone put him there? Did he not go of his own accord? How did he get found out there? Why was he there?
Well, and especially when you add in all the other weird stuff, what I believe could have been a wiped down car, the ex-husband calling, talking about his life's in danger, the weird
exchange between Ryan and his mom.
Right. Buying tickets to here and driving to there.
Asking for cash.
There's too many weird things for me to just be like, oh, he just got lost in the desert.
Right. Right. Now, when Ryan was found, he was wearing black athletic shorts, socks, and high-top canvas Chuck Taylor All-Star shoes on both feet, and an orange plastic bracelet that said Try Camp 2013. Ryan's body, including his clothing, weighed a total of 50 pounds. So this goes to show you how much of the body had either been removed or been lost in the natural process.
So he had no shirt.
He had no shirt.
Okay. When you said that his body weighed 50 pounds, I literally felt something.
Yeah.
Because that just tells us what kind of shape he was
This was
in.
rough.
Oh, man.
This was absolutely rough.
Okay. Oh.
Now, notably missing from the body were his eyes, heart, lungs, liver, and kidneys.
Okay. He's been in the desert for 2 months. There are animals in the desert?
There are absolutely animals in the desert. There are birds of carrion. There are coyotes. There are insects. There are absolutely animals in the desert.
And without being, you know, crude, some of those organs might be what an animal would try
Absolutely.
to
It would be a
get
target.
to.
They would be a
Correct.
target for an animal. And we'll go into a good deal of that when we go over the autopsy report,
Okay.
because the debate, exactly what you're saying, were these organs purposely taken or were they lost to scavengers in the desert?
Seems strange to me that all of those organs would be removed just by, like, say, scavenger activity. That seems strange to me because you would think, really? Everything? That's a lot. Some of that, I would say maybe might be expected. But then again, he's been in the desert for 2 months. I don't know. Okay, tell me more. This is awful, though. This is
Okay.
awful.
It is awful. It is so difficult. This is so difficult and so incredibly tragic. The whole thing is just tragic.
Yeah.
So during his autopsy, they found a fracture in his skull.
That's weird.
It is weird. I'll get to that. The toxicology report run on what was remaining of Ryan's brain revealed conflicting information. The ELISA test for amphetamines was presumptively positive, but no amphetamines were detected using gas chromatography and mass spectrometry. Basically, that means maybe.
Okay.
Ultimately, the cause of death is listed as undetermined due to advanced decomposition, and the manner of death is undetermined. Now, knowing all of that, we've kind of set the scene, right? There are two avenues that I think really need to be explored. First is what clues we can glean from the way his body was found. And I think, I hope that can help us kind of figure out what happened to Ryan. And then based on how you think his life ended, there's the further question of why his body was found where it was. Do you think this is a homicide? Do you think this is an accident? And then those will lead you to figure out why his body was where it was. So I'm going to go over a few theories.
Okay.
The biggest question in this case truly is, was Ryan murdered or was this some kind of terrible, tragic accident? And there's very conflicting opinions on this. The most shocking and significant discovery, and honestly, the one that catches everyone's attention in this case, is the missing organs.
Sure, that's pretty significant.
After reading the autopsy report, it would appear that the forensic examiner strongly believed that all of the missing flesh and organs were due to animal and insect activity.
Okay.
A specific entry on the autopsy report allows for a note of what is called, quote, evidence of medical intervention, end quote. The information listed simply says, quote, none. Now, I have learned this means that there's no visible signs of cuts on the body, like from a scalpel or from other tools. Now, again, a lot of the skin was degraded, so I don't know if you would necessarily see it.
Correct.
I will say, being just open to all possibilities, in this case, it just doesn't seem super likely that organ harvesting would be possible just because of the remote location. And honestly, because of the equipment needed for harvesting.
In full disclosure, I'm not exactly sure what you would need, but I do see how the desert might not be the best place to do whatever you would need to do.
Well, right. I mean, first, cleanliness,
Sure.
also refrigeration,
Sure.
clean places to house these organs, quick transportation for these organs, someone to take hold of the organs. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I don't know that that's something that should just kind of happen at a spur of the moment place and, a place of 735 people in Death Valley. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, The autopsy report is by comparison very short. It's only 4 pages, mostly because of the lack of organs.
Right.
Typically they would go through every single organ, weighing it, describing the color, describing the texture, describing what they see about each organ. And it's just gone.
Now I do see what you're saying. Everything you're saying sounds very valid. If you were attempting to harvest organs to be sold on the black market or things of that
Right.
nature. But what if it was a hate crime? Or what if it was just a murder? Just a murder where somebody just brutalized another person?
I am absolutely not ruling any of that out or saying that could not happen. I think the reason I'm addressing the organ harvesting first is because it's been such a hot item in this case.
Highly debated. Okay.
Highly debated. And in 2017, Snopes, you familiar with
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So
Sure.
Snopes even did a complete analysis of Ryan's case and dispelled the theory that this could have been organ harvesting.
Okay. Okay.
Joseph Scott Morgan, an associate professor of forensics at Jacksonville State University, who has evaluated Ryan's autopsy report, said of the possibility of organ harvesting, quote, if that's going to be a procurement event, first off, you have to have a viable way to source the organs, and they would be surgically removed. That means you would have to have smooth margins that indicate a scalpel has opened the body. There's no indication of this. As a matter of fact, there's little or no tissue that's left on the outside of the body. Now, again, proponents of organ harvesting say, okay, but there's no flesh on the outside of the body. So how can you say there's no scalpel marks?
Right. Maybe it started that way, but then over the time the body continued to degrade and all of those markings were lost.
It's possible. I will say there was a fair amount of mummified skin tissue on his body. None of it really covering the chest cavity, though. So
And what would that indicate? The mummified, what does that mean?
it's essentially just skin that has not been removed from the body, that has been baked by the sun in a very arid
Okay.
an arid environment is what
Okay.
that means. So essentially the skin becomes kind of leathery.
Okay.
So the skin that was remaining was very much like that. So if there were any scalpel marks on that area, it would be very easy to see. But again, there wasn't a tremendous amount of skin left over where the soft tissue parts would be.
Okay.
Now, remember I mentioned the fractured skull?
Yes, that seems weird to me.
Okay. It was determined by both the forensic anthropologist and the forensic pathologist that the skull fracture was from a natural decomposition process and the drying of the bones in the arid desert. It makes them almost brittle. So the conclusion was that this fracture occurred after death.
Okay.
There was also some indication of hemorrhage within the brain cavity within the skull, but there hasn't been a lot of conclusive evidence that that came from a homicidal injury or from a traumatic injury. So at this point, they're not finding any major cause of death.
Which makes it hard to rule a homicide.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But there are many, including his mother, that believe Ryan was killed. And again, possibly for organ harvesting, but I think we've mostly ruled that out. But Miss Iris believes there could have been possibly a different motivator, possibly one of the things that you mentioned. This could have possibly been a crime, racially, or he was a gay man. Maybe this was a crime against his sexual orientation. Who knows? Some people don't even need a reason to kill.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking, even just because he is in a place where he's not really known.
Right.
So I don't know that anybody would be able to look at him and say, oh, he's gay. I don't like that. Now, if it was racially motivated, then okay. But maybe it's just some crazy killer.
It's possible.
I mean, strange, again, that it happened in this small little town of Baker, where I'm assuming they don't have a high rate of homicide and such. But it's the only town in quite some time. So there's probably a lot of like traffic going through it.
Right.
So it really could
Maybe
be.
it was a transient, is what you're
Right,
suggesting.
right.
Sure.
Or, just somebody passing through. Yeah.
Now, the piece of evidence that Miss Iris continually points to as a strong indicator of murder is the lack of tattoos found on the body. Ryan had a cross behind his right ear and an astrological sign, which was an Aquarius with his name on it, on his upper left arm. The autopsy report lists 0 tattoos on the body. Miss Iris believes that these two areas might have been removed in order to prevent the identification of Ryan.
You know, tattoos can be a great way to identify people. So, okay.
Of course, the forensic examiner chalked these losses of skin up to animal activity.
But once again, it's just interesting that both of the tattoos were missing, just like all of these organs were missing. You know what I mean? Like, that's a little
Well, and again,
strange.
I mean, you combine that with these very strange circumstances over
And
the last
everything
weeks and
else.
months of Ryan's life. I mean, him telling his mom he's concerned for his safety, Kai's telling his mom that he's in danger, Ryan running out of gas, yet he asked for money. Like, it's a lot.
Even not even being able to find the car. I mean, I know that we've come up with an answer that we, I guess, are accepting, but even that seems strange to me
Yeah.
that like they went to look for the car and couldn't find it. I mean, I think it probably he really did walk further than he thought, but that along with everything else is just weird.
Yeah. Now, both the highway patrolman and the friend that drove to LA to pick up Ryan were questioned and both were cleared.
Okay.
And really, there haven't been any other suspects that have come up in this case.
Mm.
And I have to admit, I find the likelihood of him being murdered to be low. However, I can't exactly wrap my head around how Ryan's death could have come from something otherwise. Right? Like, it seems unlikely he was murdered, but I can't really put together a scenario by which he dies naturally either.
You know, Kaith said he did sound intoxicated earlier in the day. So, is it possible that he was under the influence of something and didn't realize he was walking deep into the desert? But the law enforcement officer was able to have a conversation with him, and none of his reports reflect that Ryan was intoxicated. His friend spoke to him and didn't say, "Oh yeah, and he was highly intoxicated," or anything like that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll go into some more theories about
Okay,
that, but you're
okay.
definitely on track. So, one theory that might explain how he ended up where he was, I mean, emphasis on the might, is that possibly he was trying to walk back to his car. Possibly he still felt it was out there and he wanted to go find his car. The problem with this theory is that he wasn't found near the highway.
Yeah,
He was about 200 yards off a side street off the highway. I mean, we're talking in the desert.
yeah,
So that doesn't hold a lot of water to me.
no.
And, people are like, well, maybe he was walking and he became disoriented. Do you get, I don't know. That
He
seems,
saw a mirage and thought he saw water. I mean, I guess it's possible,
uh,
but
it's possible.
not
But
likely.
yeah, I think if you believe that happened, you have to believe he was under the influence of some kind of substance or he was having some kind of mental episode.
Right. I would think you would have to take that into consideration. And for me, I don't think he was under the influence of anything unless the purchase he made at the AMPM was some kind of alcohol or something, or if after he left that station, he went and got something. But the fact that the witnesses who saw him and spoke to him didn't say that he seemed to be under the influence of anything, that kind of rules that out for me.
Well, and the highway patrolman said that he did not feel he was under the
Right.
influence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's big. That's huge.
Right. And again, someone in their right mind, even if he started out trying to find his car, anybody who had been out in that heat in that desert would have realized this is a bad situation. He was not found with a water bottle. He was not found with a hat. He was not found with anything that you would need to go out in the desert. And so I feel like, again, in his right mind, he would have gotten far enough out and said, I need to turn around.
Right.
This is going to end badly.
Especially knowing he's got somebody on their way to come get him.
Right.
He's not stuck. That's not his only option. Finding his car is not his only option.
Right. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the toxicology report was not incredibly helpful. And this, unfortunately, was most likely due to the very decomposed state of the brain material that was harvested from Ryan's skull. But again, no one around him outside of Keith, who had received a call from him earlier that day, no one thought he was under the influence. So is it possible that after the highway patrolman dropped him off, he took something? It's possible. Maybe he got something from the AM/PM station. Maybe he picked something up in Vegas and he had it in his pocket. Maybe that's what he needed the money for. I'm just not sure. Second, there is a theory that someone may have picked Ryan up trying to help him. Maybe he said, "Hey, listen, can you drive me to my car? I couldn't find it with the highway patrolman, but I know that it's there." And this theory is that Ryan may have even started acting erratically if he had taken something, and so someone told him to get out of their vehicle. The other thing is possibly whoever offered to, quote, help him wound up murdering him.
I mean, it seems unlikely to me that you've already been with a highway patrol officer looking for your car, and that didn't work out. So now I'm just going to go with a random stranger. Especially, again, these would hold more weight for me if he didn't have a friend on the way to come get
Right,
him. But the fact he's got a friend on the way, so you'll find the car later.
right,
And even if he did, let's say he is in a car with a stranger and he starts acting erratically, he's still not going to end up in the middle of a desert. He's just going to follow the highway back to
right,
Baker.
right. There's no reason why he should have been found where he was, again, if he was in his right mind.
Unless someone put him there.
Unless someone put him there. Right. Now, unfortunately, in this case, not only do we not have the answers as to why Ryan's life came to an abrupt end, but there are also indications that some of the people closest to Ryan during the last few years of his life really didn't have his best interest at heart. Remember all the footage that was captured in the Are We Famous Yet project?
Sure.
Well, the production team parlayed all of the film of Ryan into a docuseries called Dying to Be Famous.
Okay.
In the documentary released on Bounce in 2020, Ryan's companions feature Ryan's life and death. And Miss Iris was asked to be part of the project and was promised some portion of the profits, whatever was made on the film. But according to her, she's yet to see any profits out of the profit sharing. And she says her real main motivation in participating in the project was that she was able to see the raw footage of her son.
Oh. Oh, that breaks my heart.
But I don't know. Some of this just doesn't pass the smell test for me. Again, I don't know that there was anything particularly nefarious, but in one of the previously shot interviews with Ryan, he introduces himself as Shotzi, the model. That was going to be his model name. That was his chosen model name. After the release of Dying to Be Famous, the producers of the docuseries launched a clothing line by the name of Shotzi. Now, is it possible that this is some tribute to their fallen friend? I have to tell you honestly, if it is, this certainly isn't clear on their website. So it does make me wonder, like, is this some lightly veiled attempt to profit off of Ryan's name? I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this.
If you're going to use your friend's name to honor them, then why wouldn't you make that clear?
And maybe they're just bad at that.
Could be.
Maybe they're just bad at PR. I don't
Could
know.
be.
But it does seem a little strange because, like, the way I even found this website, and Miss Iris and I did talk about it after the fact, but the way I found it was that I went to a Facebook page that said Ryan Singleton, aka Shotzi the model. And it's supposed to be a tribute page to him. Different people can share memories of him and things like that. In the About section, there's the website,
Mm-hmm.
and it's shotzi.com. And I thought, oh, maybe it's a tribute website. And I click on it, and it just takes me to a clothing site.
That's interesting.
So,
That's very
again, maybe they're just really bad at
could be
putting it all together.
good intentions, but
Exactly.
didn't.
But it just doesn't translate for me.
Well, and I'm personally a little more bothered by the fact that they told Miss Iris that they would be sharing profits with her and they haven't. Now, at the same time, Did the film make any profits? There might be other questions that need answered, but I personally would feel really terrible promising a grieving mother profits from a project I was working on about her son and then not even having a conversation with her about where those are. Because it sounds like there's a conversation that needs to be had or hasn't been had,
Right.
something to that
And
effect.
I absolutely agree with that. And it's very clear that this relationship has soured.
Mm.
So maybe there is no profit to share.
Right, but then say that.
But then say that. Exactly. And unfortunately, I have not been able to view this docuseries. It is not available anywhere. So I don't know if Bounce pulled it. I don't know if the producers decided no longer to give rights to the film. I don't know, but I have not been able to see it yet, which was so incredibly frustrating to me because, I'm very thorough. I was so frustrated.
Sure.
I've tried everything to be able to see it, and it has not been available. So hopefully at some point it'll get re-released somewhere and I can view it. But that's where that stands.
Okay.
Keith Brewster also was able to gain monetarily from Ryan's death. In 2015, he filed a wrongful death suit against Avis Rental Car. I'm not sure on what grounds this was filed. It was suggested to me that it was because Ryan was not of age to be able to rent the car on his own. I don't know. According to the Avis website and California law, you can rent a car if you're over 21. So Ryan was 24 at the time, so I'm not sure. Apparently, there's some additional fee you have to pay if you're under the age of 25. Again, I don't know the basis. I was not able to find the actual court case, but it was absolutely settled, and Keith did receive some kind of payout from Avis for a wrongful death.
Weren't they divorced?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
They were separated.
They were separated.
Because remember,
not
Ryan
divorced.
had moved back home with his mom. Ryan's disappeared only a month or so after they had separated.
Okay.
So they were still legally married.
Okay.
They were estranged, but married.
Okay.
Now, again, Ryan's mother hasn't seen anything like this for her.
Right.
It's just, again,
Icky. It feels
just
icky.
feels icky. And I'm not saying any of these people are not entitled to any of the proceeds that they've gotten. Maybe Avis really did do something terrible. Maybe Keith had assisted him in renting the car. I don't know. But it just feels not above board.
On the surface,
On
it
the
feels
surface.
icky. You're separated and you're gaining, monetarily while his grieving mother is just on her own.
Yes, you're following what I'm saying.
Mhm.
Yes. Some of the reason I'm telling you these things is to highlight the people that were surrounding Ryan in his final days. Because in this situation, I think it's only fair to discuss the possibility that Ryan maybe took his own life.
Oh.
He was definitely showing signs of what I would say would be anxiety and possibly depression. Maybe he felt out of control with so many outside forces coming around him. And he clearly felt he let people down. He told his mother that. The thing for me is the running out of gas in the desert. I asked Miss Iris if this was typical of her son to ride the fuel tank down to fumes. You know who you are. That's me. And she was adamant that he was not one to play roulette with the fuel tank. So we have to allow for the fact that he decided to make this drive knowing he didn't have enough fuel. Or maybe, again, he had never made this trip before, so maybe he thought he had enough to make it to the AM/PM station.
It is also a rental car,
That's
and
true.
maybe he didn't know how far he could go. Like you said, maybe he thought he had enough. He also, I'm assuming, doesn't really know the area. So maybe he doesn't realize that there is a very long stretch where you are not going to run into a gas station. And then also maybe my gas light, you can't miss it. But I know not all vehicles are like that. Some, they're just not as obvious. Maybe he didn't see it. I mean, that's kind of hard to imagine, but maybe.
It's all possible. I just do think when you're driving through Death Valley, you should probably know your fuel volume.
For sure. I mean, yes, without a doubt. But we're talking about a case of a bunch of things that don't really make sense.
I'm with
so
you
what's
on
one
that.
more?
I'm with you on that. Now, Miss Iris, again, who thinks that Ryan met with foul play, thinks that him running out of gas and not collecting the money indicates that he was running away from someone and didn't want to make a stop for fuel.
At least at one point during you telling me all of this, that thought ran into my mind. What if he just needed to get out of there? What if he felt in danger and he just needed to get out of there? Again, you're not going to get very far when you don't have gas. But the fact that he didn't stay to get that money made me feel like he needed to leave abruptly. Something about that feels strange to me.
Yeah, so either he really was trying to get away from something,
Mhm.
or he was just being reckless, which again could indicate he's having some kind of mental episode, mental breakdown. I don't know. I
Right.
mean, that has not been suggested to me. These are just me trying to put the pieces together in different ways. There has been nothing to suggest that he was having any kind of mental episode. I'm just saying he had expressed feelings of concern.
Sure. I don't know why would he have his mom send him the money if he'd planned on, ending his life? And then why would he call his friend to pick him up? Unless he's just trying to throw everybody off. I'm going to call them, have him pick me up, and then I'm just going to go
Or maybe as he's sitting
disappear.
there with all of his own thoughts for 3 hours, he said, "You know what? I'm just gonna walk into the desert."
I guess it's possible for sure.
Is it any weirder than any of these other theories, to
Right.
tell you the truth?
Right.
This is not meant to be a negative light on Ryan at all.
Right.
As you and I have talked about, mental health is a real issue. And to say that he could have been having a problem is to not in any way say he was weak or that he wasn't doing the best that he could. I absolutely believe that he was, but people go through things sometimes.
Absolutely. And mental health is absolutely one of those things. Unless you've dealt with it yourself, you may not realize how powerful it can be. It requires care just like any other health issue
Right.
does.
But I'm with you. I feel like if this really was what happened, why would he have called his friend?
For me, that kind of throws a wrench in this theory. The whole thing kind of does. Why did he get in the car with the
Well, I say when he ran
officer?
out of gas, why didn't he just walk into the desert there? Why was he walking along the
Right.
side of the highway, where he could easily be found?
Right. So for me, there seems to be enough steps that seem to show that he was trying to get home that kind of make me feel like
That wasn't his intention. His
right.
intention was to get home.
That's kind of where I'm landing.
Now, remember I told you that list Miss Iris had for me to share with our listeners about how we can help her family? I want to share
Yes.
those with you
Okay,
now.
please,
Okay.
because I want to help.
The first thing that she asked for over everything was a private investigator. She feels like there are extra steps that could be taken, that she needs somebody who knows what they're doing to really look into these things, to really question these people that were in his life, to really look for these Las Vegas security videos, to really go and interview people. What was he doing? Why was he there? What was going on? She really wants somebody that can help her.
As do I. I want to know the answers to these questions.
She feels like a reward fund would be helpful in the search for answers, and she would like to amass enough funds to put that together. She would also like to exhume her son's grave and have the remains re-examined for signs of a homicide. So, listeners, if you would like to provide any of these in any way to Iris, either funding one, or maybe you are a private investigator that's looking for a fantastic pro bono case, I think this is a good one. If there are any other organizations that you know about that may be of service to Miss Iris, please let us know. We would love to get you in touch with her. Miss Iris wants everyone to remember Ryan as a loving, joking, helpful, and intelligent man. She will always remember him as being the king of trivia and, again, her gentle giant. She said his life was important and that she is greatly disturbed by his loss. I want to reiterate to everyone that Ryan's case is cold, but it is still open. If you have any information on the death of Ryan Singleton, please contact the San Bernardino Police Department.
I would love to see a private investigator get on this one, and like you said, look at the surveillance footage. Really get some answers to some of these questions that we've been asking for the last hour.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
unfortunately, again, I mean, this is a 10-year-old case, so I think a lot of that evidence is in the wind now, but there's
Yeah.
got to be more to it. I just can't believe that nobody saw anything.
It's hard to imagine. It's very hard to imagine. So I think it's solvable. I'd love to see it solved. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing that case. I wasn't familiar with this case. And my heart really goes out to Miss Iris and the rest of Ryan's family. This is really awful. So they'll be in my thoughts and prayers. And man, I really hope they can get some answers.
Totally agree. Again, I feel like it was a privilege and an honor to be able to share this and to get to speak to Miss Iris and feel a little bit of her heart and be a very, very small part of her story. And man, if we can get her connected with somebody that can provide more answers, I mean, I would just fall out of my chair. I would be so excited.
That would be so amazing. And you know what? Our listeners are amazing. So I'm sure some good can come from this plea of please helping.
I'm keeping the faith.
Yes,
I'm absolutely keeping the faith.
Well, on the subject of good, should we talk about our Branch of Hope report?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, the true stories we tell on this podcast do provide entertainment and excitement, but we always want to show compassion and respect to the victims and their loved ones. So the Branch of Hope Foundation allows us to give back to the community, spread awareness about unsolved cases, and hopefully bring a little comfort and hope to those who really need it. Each month, we highlight a nonprofit organization related to our first episode of the month. This month, we are highlighting the Amy Rowe Bechtel Scholarship Endowment at Northwest College. We support this organization because we covered Amy Bechtel's case the first Wednesday in June. So a portion of our proceeds from our Patreon and sponsors will go directly to this scholarship, and you can get involved by donating directly as well. You can find their information on our website or on our social media platforms, and you can also contribute by joining our Patreon, where a portion of your subscription will go to support the Branch of Hope Foundation, nonprofit organization of the month. So we are simply a podcast leading through words and actions. If you loved this episode, love us, or love what we are doing at the Branch of Hope Foundation, please like and subscribe and tell someone. And forward this episode to a friend who might like it or who might be able to help Miss Iris.
Please. Also, please send us an email at thedarkoakpodcast@gmail.com. Private investigators, reward fund, and anyone who knows anything about exhuming a grave for another autopsy, please email us at thedarkoakpodcast@gmail.com. We are also open to your questions and comments and anything else you want to share, but also ways to help Ryan Singleton's family.
Ways to help.
Ways to help. That's what we need. For other ways to connect, you can hop over to thedarkoak.com. Be sure to follow us to our next episode where we cover the death of SeaWorld trainer Dawn Brancheau. Was SeaWorld really to blame? Are orcas where they need to be? Cynthia's going to give us all the details. Thanks for listening, Shiver Seekers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.